what would be the first thing, if you were in the shoes now of some of these athletes, what advice would you give them?
I don't like the word mentor, but for lack of a better description, find someone that you trust. And so find someone with some experience. And look, there are a lot of people out there with a lot of success and a lot of experience, but you can tell really quickly if they're giving you advice from a point of they want to take something from you versus I've got nothing, I've no skin in this game. I don't take anything from this. And really start pouring into that person. Or listen, if there's not a person in your life, there are a lot of there's a lot of valuable information, whether it's a podcast or someone, that type of stuff, mindset shift. But I think taking at least a portion of that energy that you're pouring into something that even if you reach the pinnacle of that sport, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, bodybuilding, at some point that is going to end because we all get older. And so I think carving out some times for what comes next before it's upon you. So it's preparation for what's next, right? Especially when you're young, it's so hard to see what's next, which is one of the things I was really good at, and I think I attribute to my success, was I was always looking forward. And so I think that's an important part of it.
Yeah. So a question also that I get asked because, injuries and stuff like that. So say an athlete got injured. Yeah. How would they rebuild from that? How would you kind of address, say, an injury? They have time for reflection. Would you then look at obviously the best investment is in yourself, don't get me wrong, but how hard would it be for somebody then to rebuild themselves, to get back up and then start thinking wider scale on the business element of things? Does that make sense? I'll try to readdress my question.
I think so. I'll start, and then I'm going to attribute it to 2019 for me. And so 2019, I had just had a massive exit. I had more money in the bank that any man should ever have. Going through a divorce. COVID had hit. And so here I am. Everyone would look at me and say, that's the luckiest man in the world. I'm in a massive home by myself, bunch of money, absolutely goddamn miserable, and I hate my life. Now, no one knew that. Because from the burden of leadership standpoint, I don't have the luxury of being able to share that with many people. But it's important because, there's a parallel, right? Yes. And so what I recognize is I needed to burn myself to the ground. And luckily, COVID saved my life. I had a year to rebuild everything. So I sat in reflection of what had gotten me there. And I just systematically took accountability for the failures, whether it was why I was unhappy in business, why did my marriage fail, all of these things. So I think accountability from that standpoint, an injury might be a little bit differently. But I think the positive mindset of, listen, any level of success, whether it's athletics or financial, you have inside of you whatever it takes to be successful. And any bad thing that happens to you, for me, I lean into it in a really meaningful way. I follow the cracks to what got me there, and I take ownership for it. And so that has always kind of propelled me forward. So, look, I've never been a high-end athlete, so I'm just trying to kind of correlate between having a massive injury. And so I would imagine if I'm a famous athlete and I feel like everything that has just been taken from me in one false swoop, I think really you need to lean into a healthy mentality and really, because your body's going to heal the way that it heals. Yeah. And as an athlete, you know what to do to heal your body. But I think what cripples people is the mental aspect of it. Yeah,
I should have more clarity at the question, but thank you for answering that. What I meant was there's obviously correlation between business and being a high-level athlete. Sure. So, if you was to lose everything in business, which you kind of have, right?
Had a massive loss just a couple of years ago.
And then the same thing as an athlete, that would be maybe an injury would be the same thing, losing everything, right?
Yep.
It's the mentality to rebuild. What would be the first steps for you that kind of correlates the business and the athlete kind of mindset of rebuilding?
So for me, I think it's reinvention. I think, sometimes you have to let go of what you thought you'd never lose. And that's just a part of life. And so it's not about giving up on the past or the dream, but acknowledging the fact that nothing is forever and nothing is everything. Success doesn't last forever. Failure doesn't last forever. And so I'm really good at reinventing myself on a reoccurring basis. And sometimes I do it because I get stale, and sometimes I do it because I've had a massive loss, which we talked about in 2020. I lost over $20 million. And so I think reinvention and not holding on to any one thing as your identity, because if you do and you lose that one thing, then you're lost.
Can money buy you happiness?
Oh, God, no. As I just told you,
I know.
I had more money than you can imagine. I was miserable. Absolutely. Sure does make things a lot easier, and it can feel disingenuous to someone listening to like that guy. He's got more money than, so I'm not saying that I wasn't incredibly appreciative for what I had. I'm just saying you can be really rich and not have many problems and still have a massive hole in yourself that can't be filled by any amount of money. And so until you address that, you're never going to be your best self. And if you're not your best self, you can never be your best at anything that you're doing.
Would you say you're the happiest right now because you kind of found your flow in life and you've lost enough to get back up on the horse and really appreciate it more than ever?
I am the happiest I've ever been in my life, and that's not a function of the amount of money, but ironically, I'm making more money now because of it. Or maybe not ironically, maybe of course, right? Of course. Yeah. And what also I'm doing, I've got this new mantra, which is no agenda, which I've never had. I have no agenda with anyone that I meet. Before I was always like, I'm going to find that angle. I'm going to make some money. I'm going to do this. And I did it in a good way. Yeah. But it was my motivating factor. Now, because I'm not, and I'm just pouring everything into the people that I meet that deserve it, guess what? Big surprise. I'm getting it back. And I'm surrounded by a quality of human being higher, maybe, not to say I haven't had good people around me, but higher than I've ever had. And it's not a surprise. It's because I'm being a better human too.
And with that said, so what are you working on now? And what are you working on next?
So
that you can talk about.
I can talk about anything.
There we go.
I can talk about anything. We talked about reinvention. And so, for the past, up until about a year and a half ago, social media was foreign to me. Not foreign, but I would have said to you a year and a half ago, which I wouldn't have been on your pod because I would have never met you, I'm not a social media guy. I don't need it. Yeah, we use it for our business, but I'm not going to do it.
Says the guy who has 1 million followers.
Well, we're going to get into that. And so I essentially stumbled into it. We talked about that 2-day, $15 million thing. And so it stumbled me into social media, and it got my attention. And then I started to really evaluate things with people that I've done deals with or I had really given advice who were on social media regurgitating the stuff that I said. And I said, you know what? Maybe I just need to, despite my looks, turn the camera around and start just really just being me and giving and see what happens. And for the first 90 days, I've told the story. I was petrified. I woke up every morning in a sweat. I'm gonna ruin my reputation. What am I gonna do? I posted my first video. Everyone told me I was a piece of shit. Really? You're stupid. Absolutely. But I have conviction. Yeah. And so once I start something, I'm either gonna fail miserably or it's gonna be a massive success.
Falling sword.
So I put my head down. I hired a great head of media. James was behind me, shaking his head. Of course, I'm great.
He's not, bro. He's shaking his head.
Shaking his head.
He's like,
I hate this job.
He actually asked me if I could hire him after this, before the podcast.
Done.
But it's okay. This is Jim. We'll talk after. Carry on, Derek.
You can't afford him.
Oh man.
So I started meeting great people, and so the answer to I am so happy, Flex. And the biggest part of that is new relationships like this. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so money is great. Money does solve almost every problem except for the biggest one that lies within you.
Thank you for watching this segment. Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube. Help us by subscribing, leave a like, comment, or a positive review. Click this to see what YouTube recommends, and this to see the full interview. See you on the next one. Out.